That was a statement win from the Kings against the Timberwolves as they take down Minnesota 124-111. I am here a little late to recap this one, but the Kings moved to 9-6 on the season, and they moved to 3-0 in-season tournament play as they lead West Group C in this critical game against the Timberwolves, who were also 2-0. The Kings were able to pull out the victory. And I think this season the Kings have really had two statement victories. And really what I think that means is they were games where I wasn't very confident going into them. And I think the first one was against the OKC Thunder, also in in-season tournament play. And then there was this one. That Thunder game, the Kings didn't have Fox. In this one, no Keegan Murray, going up against a team that was undefeated at home, the number one team in the West, the number one defense in the league, the last game of a long road trip. And in both of these statement victories, they really came out with a lot of energy and threw the first punch, and then were able to maintain that for the rest of the game. There were a lot of people, and it just became a big storyline coming into this season from the national media that the Kings got lucky with injuries last season. And that was always a stupid talking point. And the Kings are showing people why, because the Kings have had to deal with injuries this season. Fox missing games, obviously Keegan now missing games. They had Lyles out for a lot of the season. Herter's missed some games. Keon, Alex Len. So the Kings have had injury problems, and they're still 9-6. And that's with 10 games on the road, 5 games at home against tough teams. And so a 9-6 record at this point is pretty awesome for the Kings. And now they move into a very home heavy schedule. The threes were a big part of this game against the Timberwolves, and it had to be because, obviously, like I said, the Timberwolves are the number one defense in the league. Well, I don't know if they are anymore after this game, but they were coming into this game, and they were number 2 in opponent 3-point field goal percentage, and the Pelicans, who we just played, are number 1 in that stat. And we saw against the Pelicans, the Kings really struggled to get into the paint, and that forced them to take tough threes, and they missed a lot of threes. In this game, it was a much different story. Yes, the Kings were on fire from three, but it was because they were generating so many open looks pretty easily. The ball movement was incredible, especially in that first quarter. Just every play felt like the ball was zipping around. Herter knocking down a few threes, but it really started from Fox and Sabonis being aggressive inside, which set up the outside game. And the Kings came in with a good game plan and pretty much the same one that they tried against New Orleans as well. And it was what worked against New Orleans. And it's Zion was guarding Harrison Barnes, so make Zion work. In this game, it's Karl-Anthony Towns. Make him work. And the Kings did just that, making him run all around the perimeter, trying to chase Harrison Barnes. You had Sabonis screening for him, and Gobert doesn't want to switch, for good reason, obviously. And Harrison Barnes has been absolutely key in these last 3 games. And I know we lost 2 of them, but he was kind of what made the last game even close, along with obviously some other guys. But he was really good in this one. He has been a lot better than he was at the start of the season. Of course, minus opening night. He was doing a great job of attacking closeouts and getting into the paint. But really, he was slowing things down, because what a lot of players will do is if they attack a closeout, get by, the help comes, they'll just immediately swing a pass to the corner, or they'll leave their feet and kind of just have to chuck the ball back out towards the perimeter. But what he did, and what he always does, what he's best at, is slowing things down. And he would slow things down, kind of let the defense scramble for Minnesota, which would then expose the weaknesses. And he would either obviously take it himself, or then that would kind of show him where the right pass is, as opposed to when the entire Minnesota defense is scrambling. Yes, obviously, if you find the right guy, it's great, and the ball can move around the perimeter and generate an open look. But also what can happen is the ball can, say, go to the corner. There's already someone closing out. that player maybe pump fakes and then drives and then, you know, kicks it out again. And it doesn't really go anywhere. But when Barnes was being so patient, he was always making the right decision in those moments. It was nice to see the Kings come out and be the ones that were controlling the game on the offensive glass and not allowing Minnesota to do that. The Kings ended the game out rebounding the Timberwolves on the offensive glass by 4. And that's obviously somewhere where the Timberwolves can have an advantage because they play 2 centers, they play really big. And something I was worried about coming into this game was definitely points in the paint and free throw differential, but I thought the Kings did a really good job of, one, attacking the paint on offense, and I thought they did a pretty good job of protecting the paint as well. The free throw differential in this game was not at all earned by the Timberwolves like it was against the Pelicans. And what I mean by that is the Pelicans against the Kings got it into the paint and were just destroying the Kings inside and forcing the Kings to foul. In this game, it was just a bunch of soft whistles, and I thought the Kings actually did a really good job of on both ends, and they should have gotten more whistles. And that's kind of why after the really hot start, the Kings I think went up 57-35 at one point, and then the Timberwolves came back into it and ended the half only down by 6, 70-64. But I didn't feel like the Kings played horribly down the stretch of the half. Sure, the offense wasn't as good. They were missing shots, but it's kind of to be expected. I don't expect the Kings to hold a massive lead against a good team for the entire game. And they just went cold. Karl-Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards kind of were heating up, and the officials were horrible. It honestly, it just kept getting worse. I kept expecting it to like at some point level out, and maybe it slightly did in the fourth quarter, but it just through the first and third it just progressively kept getting worse with some just crazy calls, especially from Mark Davis. And you could tell it was getting to Fox. I mean, he picked up that technical. The whole team looked pretty deflated. And I think when they came out at halftime or for the second half, they kind of had a different attitude. And that was just accepting that things were not being officiated well, right? And that you just kind of have to accept that. And in that third quarter, when Fox finally got a foul call and the Kings got it was an and one, so they got their third free throw attempt of the entire game. They were like celebrating, high-fiving. That was really funny. I honestly think Fox was just super pissed about the way this game was officiated, and that's why he took 32 shot attempts. And I know people will say, well, he got 36 points on 32 shot attempts. That's not very efficient. Well, one, he also had 12 assists. But he had an off shooting game and he wasn't getting calls. And I do not care if those two things are happening. I want him to continue to shoot every time, especially when the Timberwolves are going on a run and when the Kings offense is going a little cold. And down the stretch of the game, I want him shooting the ball every single time. And that's exactly what he was doing at the end of this game. Because against the Pelicans in that last game, he didn't do that at all. He barely got any shot attempts in the fourth quarter of that close game against the Pelicans. And I think he took it upon himself, like, I'm not going to let that happen again. And he just took every shot. And when the Kings offense is struggling, we know that Fox can just get to a spot and get a pretty good shot at pretty much any time. And so, when the offense has gone cold, when the ball isn't like zipping around the court like it usually does, we need him to get those shot attempts because those are the best shot attempts that we're going to get on the entire possession. Kevin Huerter, I thought, had a really solid game. Defensively, I thought he was pretty good. He was definitely making hustle plays and using his length. And he obviously started the game with 2 threes. And after that, didn't contribute too much offensively, but he picked his spots and was doing pretty well defensively. And that's all he really needed to do in this game. He's not going to be on fire every game, or some teams are going to take him away. And the Timberwolves are one of the teams that can do that. And so I thought he just did a good job of doing enough. And I thought Duarte was kind of the same. Like he didn't have his shot going, but I thought he was playing pretty solid defense. Of course, fouling is still an issue. I mean, I love his physical defense, but he has to clean up the fouls. And I don't think all of them were deserved, but that doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, he is averaging the most fouls per minute of any player, rotational player, like that gets enough minutes to qualify. And so Kessler Edwards and Malik Monk kind of came in for those two. And Malik Monk just came in and immediately, first two possessions he's on the court for, just pulls up for three, hits them both. Like you knew it was his night. He was definitely struggling to get shots to go inside. He got blocked a lot. Again, some of them definitely fouls. But I liked that he kept attacking. And then Kessler Edwards was really good in this game. He was guarding Anthony Edwards, and he was doing a great job with his length. And he was also contributing offensively, knocking down 2 threes and scoring 10 points in this game. The bench was really good in this game. But, I mean, Kessler is always going to thrive on the defensive end of the floor. And guarding the other team's best player, I mean, he made things super tough for Ant. Ant did not have a good game in this one, and Kessler Edwards was a big reason why. He was denying him the ball, and there's a one play, I think it was in the third quarter, where he was denying him the ball, and then Ant tried to back cut him. And even though Kessler was denying him the ball, he was able to recover and not give up the back cut and use his length to create a turnover. So I really liked what we saw from him. He doesn't have that same issue as Duarte with fouling. Trey Lyles also came in and went 3 for 6 from 3. He has been awesome since coming back from injury in these few games. And you know he's always going to give you the rebounds. 7 rebounds in 19 minutes. I think that's a super underrated aspect of his game. JaVale McGee even gave solid minutes. He had been struggling as of late, just coming in and making dumb mistakes, fouling, just not good decision making from him as of late. It was much more controlled in this game. There was still that one possession where he was pushing the ball up the court by himself. Could just pass to a guard, but no, he's got to push it up himself, and he was definitely close to a turnover, but there was really only one of those moments. So I thought he gave a good rebounding presence, and then Davion even came in, scored 2 buckets in a row. That was nice. He also forced a turnover, so solid minutes from him as well. Like I said, when the Kings built a big lead, I didn't expect them to maintain that throughout the whole game. Like a 20-point lead, I didn't expect them to do that because they built it so early, just through great 3-point, not just through great 3-point shooting, but that was a big part of it. But it was the way they responded to the Minnesota runs, and Fox was a huge part of that. It got down to 2 points, the lead did, in the third quarter. I felt like every time Minnesota was getting close or cutting into the lead, Fox was always there to get us a bucket. Again, that's what we expect from him, and he didn't do that in the last game against the Pelicans. So good to see him have that bounce back game, even if he wasn't shooting the ball super well. But the third quarter was all about the defense. The defense was awesome. They limited the Timberwolves to 15 points. In the other 3 quarters, they allowed over 30 points. They also scored over 30 points themselves in those other quarters and scored 22 in the third. So obviously a big difference defensively in that third quarter. Both teams definitely went cold shooting wise, but I also think more physicality defensively was being allowed in the second half, and we kind of expect to see that in all games. The further you go in the game, like you get into that fourth quarter, they're going to allow more physicality. It's kind of like the playoffs. They allow all this physicality, and in the fourth quarter of regular season games, it's kind of playoff officiating a lot of the times. And that definitely benefits the Kings because the Kings do foul a lot, and they need to be able to be physical because when you have Cat matching up against Harrison Barnes, I talked about the Kings exploiting that matchup on the offensive end, but obviously the Timberwolves are going to try to do the same on the other end. And I thought the Kings did a solid job of not letting Cat get all the way to the rim a lot. Barnes did a pretty good job of being strong, and you're going to give up some buckets just from him being too small to guard Cat, and Cat's a really good player, but they limited him to being pretty much just a jump shooter or taking tough hook shots, and I'm fine with that. Like, he definitely heated up in the second half, in the fourth quarter, but as long as things aren't coming right at the rim and you're contesting the outside shots, then those are the shots that I want to force Cat to take. And then we had the Rudy Gobert versus Sabonis battle inside. Now, all night, this was just them banging the whole night. Like, those are two big dudes going at it. And Sabonis actually ended up fouling out of this game, but that was at the very end when it was already over. I think you look at Sabonis' stat line and you're like, it was fine. 15 points, 5 assists, 11 rebounds, 2 steals, 3 blocks, 7 for 15 shooting from the field. He went 0 for 1 at the free throw line, but it's really that one free throw attempt that's like he deserved more than that, because he was going at Gobert every single time, and I loved the physicality that he was displaying, and I think it really helped open up the entire Kings offense. Him not settling outside the paint and just going straight at Gobert every single time, whether he had the ball or didn't have the ball, like, it didn't matter. He was going to be physical with Gobert. I'm sure a lot of you have heard the story by now of how the Kings ran the same play 17 times in the second half after running it not once in the first half. And, Mike Brown talked about how Domas at halftime was like, why are we not running this play? So then they just kept running it in the second half, and it's that horn set with the high double screen. And if you want a really in-depth breakdown and to see this play happen a lot, King's Film Room made a great video on it. But pretty much it just allowed Fox to pick either screen, and because they were set so high up, it was forcing both big men to come up, creating so much space for Fox to get downhill and attack the rim. Because sure, Minnesota, they tried different coverages, they tried hedging, and they tried switching, they tried a lot of things, but I mean, this worked because Fox is incredible. And so it just allowed him to either get downhill or draw a lot of bodies. And he got so many open floater and mid-range looks that honestly, he could have knocked down even a higher percentage of them. Like, I would expect him to knock down even more than he did. But he was also creating a lot of open looks for others, hence the 12 assists that he had. And he just drew so much attention that it allowed others to get the ball, especially Harrison Barnes. And then Harrison Barnes was able to get that dribble penetration. And I already talked about his good decision making from there. Fox pick and rolls has definitely been something I've wanted to see more of, where when the Kings go cold, you kind of just give the ball to Fox and then go pick and roll and he can get you a shot. But the Kings, they took it to a whole different level of this horn set of setting 2 screens for him and just doing it every single possession. And it just kept working. Obviously, you're not going to be able to do this every night. There's, teams will figure out better ways to cover this, but it was really fun to watch. Fox just, like I talked about before, I want to see Fox be aggressive every time that the Kings offense goes cold, or every time Minnesota's going on a run. Most of the time those are hand in hand, or when it's late in the game, and he did exactly that. Sasha Vezenkov got a DNP in this one, probably because the Kings just didn't think he was athletic enough or tall or strong enough to go up against this big Timberwolves team, and we probably would have gotten killed defensively just like we did against the Pelicans if he was in there. So that makes sense just matchup wise why he wouldn't play. There was just so much to love about this game, beating an Minnesota team that was undefeated at home, just like we beat the Lakers when they were 5-0 at home earlier. There aren't many criticisms that I have for how the Kings played. Like, if this game was officiated differently, they win by even more. Like, that's how incredible they were playing. Was they obviously didn't like the way the game was being officiated, but it didn't matter. So like I said at the start, the Kings are now 3-0 in the in-season tournament group, so there's one more game left, and that is the next game on Tuesday against the Warriors. And so the Kings have the top spot in the group. If they win against the Warriors, they win the group. Now, if they lose, they still have a shot to go through. They cannot go through as the second place wildcard team because they have a worse point differential at this point than Phoenix. And if they lose, then obviously their point differential could only get worse. So they have no shot at the wild card. So they have to win the group. Obviously, the easy way is you just win the game against the Warriors. But if they were to lose, then we look at the Minnesota OKC game. That's happening before the Kings Warriors game. So we'll already know. If OKC wins that, then if the Kings lose, they're out. If Minnesota wins and the Kings lose, then we have a three-way tie at the top of the group. And the Kings are in the best position to come out on top of a three-way tie because they have a much better point differential at this point. The Timberwolves actually have a negative point differential, and beating them by 13 here was really big. And the Warriors is very low. I think the Kings just can't lose by more than 12 or 13 points to stay ahead of the Warriors. And then obviously this would be if Minnesota won. So we would just have to see how much they won by and what their point differential is at that point. But all that to say, the Kings are just in a great spot. Just go win against the Warriors and we'll be fine. It's a home game. It's such a weird season how the Kings have played 15 games, lost 6 games, and have only lost to 3 teams. And it was, obviously the Pelicans back-to-back, Rockets back-to-back, and then the Warriors 2 times in 3 games. And if you actually look at who the Kings would face if they were to advance in the in-season tournament, it's probably the Pelicans, and if it's not, then it's the Rockets. So they play the Warriors, then they would possibly play the Pelicans or Rockets, all 3 teams that they've lost both games to. So that's kind of interesting. But I don't expect the Kings to just keep losing against these teams. People keep saying the Warriors are the Kings' kryptonite or something. It doesn't really make sense because they went to a 7-game series in the playoffs, and then this season, they've lost 2 games, one of them without Fox on a game-winning shot by the Warriors. The Kings have lost 2 games to 2 other teams as well. So maybe I shouldn't be, but I am pretty confident heading into this game. But it is interesting because Draymond is coming back from his suspension in this game, and he already made comments about how he doesn't really regret what he did. So we'll see what happens with that. Anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. I will be back to recap that game against the Warriors, hopefully also previewing the Kings in-season tournament quarterfinal opponent. Hopefully they advance. So I will see you guys then. Peace.